Hey everybody, part 3. Okay, so first, last time we talked about Ephesians 5, 22 through 24. We also read verse 17, I think it was. Yes, that's right. And now we're going to read 25 through 31, which is more talking to husbands. I just want to read it. I'm not going to overview it like I did the wife part. I'm going to go ahead and just talk more about some things that I want to go over. But I'm going to go ahead and read it because it's important too. And also, Brad Harrod has a beautiful article that I'm going to post after this, and I really encourage you to read it. It's more about the husband role, but he's a man, and I figured it would be so much better coming from a man's point of view, since I am a woman, and he sees things that I don't see, and I read it and I loved it. So I encourage you to read that. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and it says, this is Ephesians 5, 25 through 31, and it says, "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church, and he gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth it and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. For we are the members of his body, and of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and they shall be joined unto his wife, and they shall two be one flesh." Okay, let's see. That was the end of 31. So that was Ephesians 5, 25 through 31. And I'm not sure if I included 31. So there's that. And I'm just going to leave that where it is. Y'all can read the scripture for what it is. And also, Brad Harrod's article will help you tremendously. So I look forward to you reading that. It's great. Okay. So I want to go ahead and kind of talk about how in the last lesson that we did, we talked about love as sacrifice. So once again, this all comes back to that, and it comes back to how it's not always easy, but if you just continue to wrap yourself around God, like I talked about in love as sacrifice, wrap it around him. Take it, get some saran wrap, and just wrap it up, because that's gonna give you what you need. Wrap your life around him. Always go back to him. Always go back to what he says. Always do the things that he commands, because it's going to make your life easier. It's going to. Of course, I'm preaching to myself, because I don't do all the things I need to do. Of course I don't. But I want to. And I want you to. I want your life to be enjoyable while you're here. And I also want it to make it easier for you and your husband to get to heaven, as well as I want it to make it easier for me and my husband to get to heaven. And then I want to tie this all in to, I have wrote down here, 1 Peter 3, 5 through 12. And I have that underneath what I just talked about. So that right there is probably going to give you even more reassurance. And that right there is probably going to tell you even more information. I'm not sure exactly what it says, because I didn't write like a overview of it, but evidently it was pretty important that I wrote it down. So 1 Peter 5 through 12, if you want to read it, 1 Peter 3, 5 through 12, that would be great. I'm sure it's more to do with the husband and wife role. I'm going to go ahead and focus on Ephesians, because I don't have the time to go over the 1 Peter 3, 5 through 12. So I think I'm hitting it, though, pretty good with this. So I think 1 Peter 3, 5 through 12 is going to pretty well say the same things, but maybe a little differently. Okay, we all have work to do, husbands, and we all have work to do, wives. Forgive. Look at one another as yourself. We're one body. Remember that. One body. So, well, whenever we think about our wives, we need to think about them as ourselves. Whenever we think about our husbands, we need to think about them as ourselves. We're one body. If we're willing to make the best of things, we can do it. We can strive. We can do God's will. That goes back to being wise and being understanding of God's will. If we're wise and we're understanding of His will, we're going to do it because we know that it's going to help. It's going to help so much in our relationship. So let's quit worrying about our own needs. Let's quit worrying about what I need, what everybody needs, what your husband's needs, your wife's needs. Quit worrying about that right now. Let's worry about God's needs. Let's put God's needs first. Let's remember that key. Husbands and wives, wrap yourself around God. Husband and wife, submit yourself to God first. And then your needs are going to fall into place because you're doing what you're supposed to do. So your needs are going to be met. And if they're not, then we have work to do. We have work to do. And this is the work we've got to do to get there. We've got a lot of work to do. You all right, baby? So we've got lots of work to do. And here is one thing that I really want to focus on. We need to remember this if we have children. I know some husbands and wives don't have children. But for those of you that do, all this is important. It's important to keep your marriage strong. It's important to keep the roles right. This is another reason why it's so important if you have children. We're to train up a child in the way they should go, and when they depart, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. This is Proverbs 22:6. So that tells me right there that we're supposed to train up a child in the way they should go. No, we're not always teaching a child whenever we're just having our normal everyday husband and wife relationship. But they see it. And it's an example to them. They're going to treat their wives the way that you treat your wife's husband. They're going to treat, their wife is going to get that. Or if you have a daughter, wives, your daughters are going to treat their husbands like you treat your husband. Because that's what they see. And maybe something will happen and that won't be the case, but they're still going to have some issues. Even if, they're raised differently and they see things in the house that they shouldn't be seeing, they're probably still going to remember those things, and sometimes it's going to be hard for them, even if they try to overcome it. So let's try to make it easy for our children. Let's try to make it easy for them whenever it comes to their relationship, because what is the main goal here? We're raising up these children to leave us so that they can cleave to their spouse. So we need to be thinking this. We need to have this in the back of our mind at all times. Am I setting a good example for my child? Am I setting a good example as a wife? Am I setting a good example as a husband to my children, to my son, to my daughter? It doesn't matter. Make sure you're setting a good example, because they're going to learn from daddy and mama. They're going to learn that relationship between you, and they're going to learn how to be when they're older and they're in that relationship. And you want them to have a good relationship because it makes it easier for them to get to heaven. It's going to make it easier for me. It's going to make it easier for him. It's going to make it easier for my kids, all three of them. So please, I beg you, think of this. Also, let's see. Okay, so this is where I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop here because I've went over it all, and I feel like I went over it so quickly. I know this is 3 parts, but I felt like I've got so much wrote down here and so much study that has went into this, and it just flew by, and I feel like I just have so much more that I need to talk about, but it's so simple. Just husbands and wives, submit yourselves to God. Husbands and wives, submit yourselves to God first. And it's going to make things in your life easier. And then let them children learn from you. Let them children see how they're supposed to be. Do the things that you're supposed to do, not only because it's going to make your life so much easier and so much more enjoyable, but because it's going to teach your children how to grow up and how to leave the house and how to treat their spouse. You want good for them. You want a good relationship for them because that's their life. That's the majority of their life. That's what they're going to spend the most time doing, is being with their husband or being with their wife. And you want that to be a good relationship. And you want them to pass that on to their children. That's why God set it up this way, because he's smart. He's wise. He has wisdom that we don't have. Whenever a woman says, why is a man the head of me? Well, this is why. Because obviously God knows what he's talking about. That's why. So let's let him take control. Let's take our relationship and let's wrap it around God. Let's take that saran wrap and I know that's just a visual, because let's just get it as tight as we possibly can with him first. That's going to make everything fall so much more into place. And that's going to make our walks easier together as Christian couples. And it's going to make it easier for the one that we've chosen, and the one that we said, till death do us part. Let's stay together with that one. Let's do the things that we should do. Let's make it work. Let's not look and see if somebody else's grass is greener. Brad Harrod talks about this, but I just love it. Let's not look over there and say, okay, their grass is greener. Let's get the water hose and let's start watering ours. Let's start making ours greener. Let's start making our relationship better, because we love the person we married, obviously, or we wouldn't have married them. So let's get him or get her and say, listen, I just listened to this lesson and this is what I want to do. I want to start doing this because I love you and I know you love me. And this is what's going to strengthen our relationship. This is what's going to make it better. This is what's going to make it all tick. This is what's going to do it. Let's take our heart and let's wrap it around God. And let's let our children see that light shine. Let's let other people see that light shine, because that's going to give them the example that you have a good relationship. What do? What's the secret? What's the secret? I'll tell you the secret. Husbands and wives, submit yourself to God. I love it. I love it so much. So, my prayer is that you go grab your husband and you say, look, here's these verses. Here's these places that it talks about this. Here's these things that I need to do. Let's go read it. Let's go figure out what we need to do. Let's go figure out how we can make things better. And I'm so happy to share this with you. This is going to make my relationship so much better, and I pray that it makes your relationship better. Not only with your spouse, but with God. And that is so important. And with your children. And with your children and God. It just keeps giving. It's the gift that keeps giving. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm so happy that I'm able to do this. And this is going to make my day so much better, that I have opened up to you in the Word of God and taught these things that are just going to make our lives so much better. Thank you so much for watching this. This is part 3, and I'm going to leave you to it. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, week, month, year, the rest of your life. Thank you so much.